Oh, come on. They actually let someone like you work here, the man sneered, his voice slicing through the air loud enough for every soul in Summit Market to hear. You should be hiding that thing, not parading it around for all of us to gawk at. Emily Carter didn't even blink. Can you believe it? She just kept scanning those groceries, her prosthetic leg giving off a soft, defiant click against the tile with every move. She didn't argue, didn't explain, why would she? She stood there, a quiet warrior, carrying more battles in her scarred heart than anyone in that small-town store could ever imagine. And then, oh, the moment. The store fell deathly silent, as if the very aisles were holding their breath, waiting. Who would dare break this tension? One old man did. He shuffled forward, his presence commanding, and with a voice that roared through Lakewood like a wake-up call, he bellowed 6 words that turned everything upside down: she's braver than you'll ever be. Do you think real strength needs a flawless body? Or that courage hides in the loudest voices? If you believe it shines brightest in the quietest corners, stick around. This story will flip your idea of heroes right on its head. Welcome to Heartfelt Gratitude Stories, where compassion and kindness weave tales that touch the soul. Ready to dive into what really happened? Let's go. Picture this: Lakewood, Montana, a sleepy little town that never rushes for anything. It wakes up slow with the sun, stretching lazily, its days drifting like a river smoothing over ancient stones. Right at its heart stands Summit Market. Oh, what a place. A cozy, sturdy supermarket with scuffed linoleum floors and a bell above the door that chimes a sweet hello every time someone steps inside. Mark Lawson was there, wiping his hands on a towel behind the front desk, his sharp eyes catching the gentle bustle of a Wednesday morning. 6 years as manager, can you imagine? And he knew almost every face that crossed that threshold: weathered farmers with dirt-stained boots, rugged ranchers with tails in their eyes, patient teachers with stacks of papers, young moms juggling kids swinging from carts like little monkeys. Lakewood wasn't just a place of names, it was a tapestry of stories. That's exactly why Emily Carter stood out like a beacon. Mark hired her 3 months ago, blown away by her firm handshake, that no-nonsense smile, and a resume that simply shouted, U.S. Army veteran. She didn't spill her life story, who needs to, but you could see it in her every move. A slight stiffness, a careful step, and if you listened close, that faint metallic click as she walked, her right leg tilting just so. Prosthetic. Mark spotted it day one, but did he pry? No way. Emily worked with precision, her skilled hands flying over groceries, her soft, good morning, or, have a great day, warming the air. Reliable, polite, unshakable, she should have been Lakewood's perfect fit, right? But oh, Mark saw those sneaky glances. It started small, customers pausing a heartbeat too long before picking her line, hushed whispers trailing them as they passed. One kid, bless his loud little heart, yelled, "Why's that lady got a robot leg?" Mark swooped in with a grin and a lollipop, smoothing it over, while Emily just smiled like it was nothing. But Mark wasn't blind. He caught the subtle signs, her mouth tightening just a bit, her hands fussing with paper bags when the store emptied out. Invisible? Hardly. People saw her, they just didn't know what to do with her strength. That morning? Same old, until it wasn't. Emily stood at register 2, crisp in her navy Summit Market polo, brown hair tucked neatly behind her ears. Her prosthetic peeked out, jeans shifting as she leaned. Mark lounged by the counter, sipping coffee from his beat-up travel mug, pretending to check inventory but really keeping watch over her like a hawk. Then, bam, it hit. "Hey, shouldn't you be working somewhere safer?" a man chuckled, slamming a gallon of milk onto her conveyor belt. His voice danced, light but with a nasty edge. "Emily. Cool as ice." "I'm right where I belong, sir," she shot back, scanning that milk like it was no big deal. The guy snorted, shaking his head like she'd cracked a hilarious joke. "Must be tough hobbling around like that. Slows the line down, huh?" Mark's grip on his mug went iron tight, knuckles whitening. Emily. She just bagged his stuff, wished him a good day with that steady voice of hers. But Mark saw it, her hand hovering over the register a second longer, steadying herself against the sting. The store turned into a ghost town of silence. Customers fiddled with phones or stared at gum racks, anything to avoid the scene. The quiet hung thick, like smoke you could choke on. Mark itched to charge in, to boot that jerk out, but Emily had laid down the law, no rescuing, just working. Still, those cruel words stained the morning air. Then, ding, the bell sang, and in strolled Samuel Green, clutching his battered leather wallet, his old field jacket draping his frame. Samuel. A Lakewood legend. A retired mailman everyone adored, always greeting cashiers by name, asking about their kids, slipping a quarter into the take-a-penny jar just because. Samuel picked Emily's line. Mark's heart squeezed tight. That rude guy. Still lurking by the sodas, snickering to another shopper. Emily rang up Samuel's bread, eggs, peanut butter, careful, quick, flawless. Samuel watched her, his wise eyes catching that metallic glint under her jeans. "Ma'am," he boomed, loud enough to rattle the rude guy and everyone else nearby. Emily froze, looking up. "You know," Samuel said, his voice steady as bedrock, "some folks think strength's all about lifting heavy stuff." The store hushed, pin drop quiet. Mark ditched his coffee, hanging on every word. "But real strength," Samuel went on, resting a weathered hand on the counter, "is lugging pain every single day and still standing tall, still showing up, still smiling." Mark's breath snagged in his chest. "You, ma'am," Samuel finished, voice dripping with heart, "are the strongest soul in this store. Don't you ever forget it." The soda guy squirmed, staring at his shoes. A woman by the bakery bit her lip, eyes glistening. Someone coughed awkwardly. Emily's hands stilled on the keys. Mark saw it, her rigid shoulders easing, her lips trembling just a flicker before she beamed a real, soul-deep smile at Samuel. "Thank you, sir," she whispered, clear as a bell. Samuel nodded, paid up, and dropped his quarter with a soft clink. And, wow, the air shifted. The silence shattered. Customers nodded at Emily as they passed. One murmured, "Thank you for your service." Another slipped flowers by her register, no words needed. Mark stood there, chest bursting, knowing he'd seen something raw and real. The day started ordinary, but today, Lakewood met a hero, and they'd never see her the same. The morning softened after that. People moved gentler, spoke sweeter, it wasn't just manners, it was knowing. Emily's quiet strength, once dodged, now owned the heart of Summit Market. Mark fussed with invoices at the desk, but his eyes stayed glued to register 2, watching Samuel's words ripple like a stone in a pond. First, little Sparks, an elderly lady, arms full of cans, picked Emily's line over a shorter one. She grinned, really grinned, and said, "Thank you for being here." Emily blinked, flustered, then murmured, "You're welcome, ma'am," all shy-like. By noon, word spread without a whisper, old-school respect, racing fast because it was earned. Mark got it then, sacrifice speaks loudest. Not everyone caught on quick, though. Around 12:30, some rowdy teens barged in, high schoolers, loud and shoving, acting like kings. Mark eyed them warily. Emily. Steady as ever, scanning their sodas and chips. Then, ugh, one kid in a ball cap muttered, "Bet she got that leg blown off doing something dumb." Mark's heart thudded, but before he could move, a sharp voice sliced through. Not Samuel this time, an old lady by the bakery, eyes like daggers, snapped, "You'll pray for half her guts when life knocks you down, kid." The teens froze, mumbling sorries, diving for the cereal aisle. Emily stayed focused, but Mark caught her shoulders lift, a long-held breath slipping free. He grinned, Lakewood moved slow, but when it turned hard. Near shift's end, Mark couldn't let it slide. Not pity, just truth. He snagged a Sharpie and paper, scrawling, "Thank you for standing." No fuss, no meeting, just taped it above register 2 for all to see. Emily came back from break, stopped dead, her tough hands shaking as she traced the words. She didn't speak, didn't need to. Mark tipped his chin. "Shift's almost done. Want me to cover?" She glanced around, smiling customers, a kid's shy thumbs up, Samuel's vet cap sitting proud on the counter. She straightened, prosthetic clicking. "No, sir. I'll stay longer today." Mark beamed, damn right she would. Outside, the sun sank, painting the lot gold. Wind whispered rain, a train wailed far off. Inside, a silent war was won, with truth, kindness, courage too fierce to quit. Emily wasn't just seen, she was home. Next morning, Lakewood woke crisp, leaves swirling outside Summit Market. Mark unlocked the doors, feeling a shift, not just fall, but something deeper. Emily was already there, setting up, lighter somehow. The town buzzed on, but now. They saw her, really saw her. Can you believe what just happened? It was exactly 10 a.m. when the bell above the Summit Market's door rang with that familiar jingle, and in walked a figure that made Mark freeze in his tracks. Who was this guy? He looked to be in his late 30s or early 40s, lean and tough like someone who had seen it all, his presence alone saying, "Soldier," before you even noticed the faded army jacket wrapped around his broad shoulders. His boots echoed on the floor with a steady rhythm, and there he was, carrying a small brown paper bag, tightly held under his arm, moving without hesitation. No wandering around, no distractions. He made a beeline for register 2, like an invisible force was guiding him straight to Emily. The whole air in the store seemed to shift. Mark felt it immediately. Emily, who had always been calm, collected, and efficient, stiffened at once, her posture going rigid, like a bow pulled taut, ready to snap at any moment. The man stopped in front of her, and he placed that brown paper bag down on the counter so gently it almost broke Mark's heart. Then, with a gesture that made the room feel smaller, the man took off his cap and pressed it firmly to his chest. His gaze never wavered from Emily's eyes. She was the only person in his world at that moment. Emily Carter. His voice was low, but it carried like a heavy weight, filled with something deeper, something that Mark couldn't quite place but felt with every word. Emily straightened slightly and answered him, her voice steady, but with a touch of confusion, "That's me." The man pulled something from his jacket pocket, a folded piece of paper, its edges soft and worn, as if it had traveled with him for years. He handed it to Emily with both hands, like it was a treasure, something sacred, too precious for careless handling. "My brother," he began, his voice rough but steady. "My brother served with you in Afghanistan. His name was Luke Henderson." Mark saw the change in Emily right away. Her face shifted, just a flicker, but it was there. Something raw, something painful, like a scar that would never heal. How could it? The man's words hung in the air between them like a thick fog. "He didn't make it," the man continued, his voice trembling with a grief that was almost too much to bear. "But before he passed, he told me about you. Said if I ever found you, I had to tell you something." He nudged the paper closer to her. "It's from him." Emily's hand trembled as she reached for the paper, her fingers brushing against it so slowly, so carefully, like it might break her if she touched it wrong. She unfolded it, smoothing out the creases as if it were a map leading her to something long lost. Mark couldn't see the words, only the back of the paper, but he could feel the weight of them. These were words written in haste, in some dusty outpost, meant to survive longer than the man who wrote them. Emily's lips moved silently as she read, her jaw locking, her face betraying nothing. When she finished, she pressed the letter to her chest and closed her eyes for a long moment. Didn't it feel like she was holding on to Luke himself? The man stood there, cap still pressed to his chest, throat working as he swallowed down whatever emotions threatened to overtake him. "Thank you," Emily finally whispered, her voice thick with emotion but steady with strength. "Thank you for bringing this to me." The man shook his head, his eyes filled with gratitude. "No, ma'am," he said, voice thick with emotion. "Thank you, for everything." And for a few long heartbeats, neither of them moved. They stood there, in that shared silence, two souls bound by something more than words, something more than grief. Soldiers, both of them, each scarred by a different battle, a different loss, but connected by that invisible thread of honor. That unspoken promise, we carry each other's burdens. With a nod that spoke volumes, the man turned and left. The bell above the door rang out again, soft and mournful, as he slipped out into the world. Emily stood still, the letter still pressed tightly in her hand, that brown bag untouched on the counter. Slowly, as though the weight of the moment was too much to carry in one go, she tucked the letter into her apron pocket, squared her shoulders, and returned to her work. No tears, no outburst, just a quiet, steadfast resolve. Isn't that what warriors do? The store, once full of the hum of normal life, now felt hushed, as though everyone was holding their breath. The scanner's beep was quieter, almost reverent. Mark's eyes moved across the store, and he saw something he never had before. An elderly man, a Vietnam vet, with a faded cap, raised a trembling hand in salute from across the produce section. Can you picture it? His hand shaking, but his gesture solid and firm. Emily caught his eye. And for the first time in all the years she'd been at that register, she raised her hand in return, not quite a salute, but a respectful nod. It was quiet. It was small. But didn't it say everything? Mark's throat tightened. He turned away quickly, fumbling with a stack of oranges to hide the tears threatening to spill. But who could deny it? Today wasn't just any other morning at Summit Market. Emily Carter wasn't just the cashier at Register 2. Today, she became something much more, a living legend. Not of sorrow, not of pity, but of survival. Of honor. Of a strength that didn't need applause or recognition to shine brightly. Today, she had earned the respect of everyone who witnessed it. As the lunch rush came in, the usual noise and bustle returned to the market. People chattered, carts rattled over the scratched tiles, and the registers sang their little tune. But didn't it feel different? Mark, standing near the bakery, kept stealing glances at Register 2. Emily was still moving with that same quiet efficiency, but now, it seemed as though customers were flocking to her line. Some skipped over open registers just to wait for her. Mark couldn't help but notice it. He saw the nods of respect, the smiles that lingered, the extra thank yous that felt heavier, more sincere. It wasn't pity, it was recognition. And Emily? She took it all with the same grace she always had. She didn't seek it. She didn't shy away from it. She just accepted it, steady as a rock. At 12:45, Samuel Green, the retired mailman, appeared once again. Can you believe that? Samuel, a legend in Lakewood, shuffled into the store with a basket full of apples and crackers, but this time, when he reached the counter, there was something different about him. He leaned in close to Emily, and whatever he whispered made her face break into a real, honest-to-God smile. It wasn't just the smile of the friendly cashier anymore, it was something deeper, something warmer. Mark could feel the pride swelling in his chest, even though he couldn't hear the words. But not everyone shared in the quiet admiration. At 1:15, as Emily wrapped up another sale, a sharp voice cut through the air like a jagged knife. Mark whipped his head up to see a woman in her mid-50s, her expensive haircut and designer purse at odds with the small-town feel of the market. She glared at Emily with a sneer that could sour milk. Hiring people like this, she sneered, her voice rising loud enough for everyone to hear. It's unprofessional. It's upsetting. The store went dead quiet. Someone dropped a can of peas in the aisle, and the clatter echoed like thunder. Before Mark could even move, Samuel Green, crooked back and all, stepped between the woman and Emily, his voice cold but steady. You watch your mouth, ma'am, Samuel said, his tone sharp as a knife. That woman you're trashing. She's got more guts in her little finger than you've got in your whole sorry self. The woman took a step back, stammering, but Samuel wasn't having it. No, you don't. He snapped. Not here. Not today. More customers gathered, silent but firm in their support. Emily stood there, still as a statue, her hand hovering over the scanner. Could she believe this was happening? Mark joined in just as Samuel turned to Emily, his voice soft now, filled with a kind of tenderness Mark didn't often hear from him. You don't have to say a thing, Missy, Samuel said. Surviving? That says it all. And just like that, the woman, seeing she'd lost the room, huffed loudly and stormed out. Her heels clicking in the silence that followed. A few seconds later, a soft applause rippled through the store. Nothing big. Just a simple, quiet act of solidarity. Emily, her hand still over that letter in her pocket, pressed her palm to her chest, taking a breath. Mark, standing close by, gave her a quiet nod. You okay? Emily took a shaky breath, nodding. Yeah, she whispered. I'm okay. And somehow, Mark believed her. She was. That night, as Summit Market locked up and the last receipt was printed, Mark lingered in the quiet. The aisles were dim, the freezers hummed. He wandered over to register 2, where the brown paper bag still sat, untouched. He opened it slowly, and inside, he found a hand-carved wooden plaque. On it, 3 words burned deep, still standing strong. Mark traced the words with his thumb, feeling the weight of them. Was this a gift? A reminder? A vow? He could almost hear Luke's voice in the quiet of the store, reminding Emily, and everyone, of the strength that didn't need to be shouted. That night, Mark smiled. Tomorrow, he'd put up that plaque for all to see. And from that day on, Emily Carter wasn't just a cashier at Summit Market. She was a symbol, a living reminder of what true strength looks like. And Lakewood? Lakewood had finally woken up to what it meant to be truly grateful. He didn't finish the sentence, but oh, he didn't need to. The silence that crashed over Summit Market was louder than any shout. Can you feel it? Every head whipped around, every pair of eyes glued to the drama unfolding at the front of the store, as if time itself held its breath. Emily, fresh from assisting an elderly woman with her groceries, stood like a statue behind her register. Her hands were folded calmly, a quiet fortress of strength. She didn't flinch, not even a flicker. She didn't lower her eyes, didn't bow her head. She just stood there, unwavering, still standing strong, a beacon of resilience in a storm of tension. Samuel Green, rummaging through the discount produce bin with his weathered hands, stepped forward again. Oh, what a moment. But this time, he wasn't alone. No way. Other customers, young folks with bright eyes, old-timers with stories etched in their wrinkles, mothers juggling kids, farmers in worn boots, teachers with gentle smiles, quietly abandoned their carts and formed a semicircle near the front. Can you picture it? A wall of ordinary people, standing together, their silence roaring louder than any words. Mark fixed his gaze on the angry man and spoke, his voice cutting through the stillness like a blade, firm and unshaken. In this store, sir, we value service. We value sacrifice. We value character. He nodded toward Emily, a flicker of pride lighting his eyes. And we don't tolerate hatred, not toward our employees, not toward anyone. The man opened his mouth, his face twisting, but Mark wasn't finished. Oh no. If that's a problem for you, he said, steady as a rock, you're welcome to take your business elsewhere. A heartbeat of tension hung in the air, then bam. Someone clapped, a single, sharp sound that pierced the silence. Then another, and another, until the whole store erupted in applause. It was deafening, a thunderous wave of approval. The angry man's face flushed scarlet, he muttered something low and bitter, and stormed out, the bell above the door jangling wildly in his wake like an exclamation of defeat. But the applause? It didn't fade right away. Oh, how it swelled. It rolled through the store like a tide, lifting everyone in its wake. Mark glanced at Emily, and for a fleeting second, she stood frozen, caught in a whirlwind of disbelief and gratitude. Then, slowly, like the sun breaking through clouds, she smiled, a small, shy, luminous thing that lit up her face and warmed the whole room. Mark felt his throat tighten, a lump rising he couldn't swallow, and he turned away, fussing with the printer paper behind the counter. But who could deny it? That day, the town of Lakewood drew a line in the sand, a line of grace, bold and unyielding. Later that evening, after the last customer had shuffled out and the floors gleamed from a fresh mopping, Emily found herself alone, standing before the plaque above her register. She traced the words with her fingertips, just as she had that very first day, still standing strong. The letters felt like a promise, etched not just in wood but in her soul. Mark leaned against the counter nearby, arms crossed loosely, watching her with a quiet smile. "You know," he said, his tone light but brimming with meaning, "I was thinking we could add a second plaque." Emily raised an eyebrow, curiosity sparking in her eyes. "Really?" Mark grinned, stepping over to tap the wood gently. "Maybe something simple, something true. Strength has many faces," he offered. Emily chuckled, a warm, rich sound that danced through the empty store like a melody on the breeze. "I like that," she said, her voice soft but certain, a quiet echo of her resolve. Mark nodded, his eyes softening. "Good. Because around here, we need reminders." He paused, then added in a quieter tone, almost a whisper, "and people to remind us." Emily gazed around the dim, hushed store, the creak of the floors, the faint hum of the coolers, the place that had somehow, against all odds, become her sanctuary. She thought of Samuel's salute, crisp and proud, of the old man's letter, its ink trembling with gratitude, of the little girl who'd slipped her a hand-drawn picture of a superhero with a metal leg, just like hers. She thought of survival, gritty, raw survival, of scars that told stories, of battles that left no visible wounds but carved canyons deep within. Strength has many faces, she realized, and today, one of those faces was hers, hers alone. Emily Carter smiled, tucking the letter deeper into her apron pocket, a treasure too precious to lose. She flicked off the lights, the darkness wrapping around her like a comforting embrace. Another day survived, another day honored, still standing strong, ready for whatever tomorrow might bring. Can you imagine the courage it takes to face each dawn like that? Saturday mornings in Lakewood carried a magic all their own, a special kind of stillness that settled over the town like a soft blanket. Families lingered over pancakes and coffee, kids dashed across front lawns with laughter trailing behind, and the farmers' market in the town square buzzed with life, the scent of fresh apples and hay mingling with easy chatter. At Summit Market, though, the day kicked off with a different rhythm. Mark Lawson unlocked the doors just before 8, expecting the usual Saturday rush, busy, predictable, comforting. But when he stepped inside, something caught his eye, a small, plain white envelope taped carefully to the base of Emily's register. No name, no frills, just his name scrawled across the front in small, careful letters. What could this be? He peeled it off gently, his fingers brushing the paper as if it might vanish. Inside was a single sheet, no threats, no complaints, no hate, just a simple, heartfelt request. "Mark, if you could find a way, we'd like to honor her properly." No speeches, no fanfare, just real gratitude from all of us who noticed, even when we didn't know how to say it. No signature graced the page, but Mark didn't need one. Oh, he knew. His heart thudded, heavy with duty yet light with hope. Some debts can't be repaid, but kindness. Kindness can be passed forward like a torch in the dark. He folded the letter with care and slipped it into his pocket, an idea sparking to life, simple, fitting, everything Emily would never demand but absolutely deserved. By noon, Mark had rallied a small crew of trusted souls, Samuel Green, with his steady gaze, 2 high school teachers, their voices soft but earnest, Pastor Whitmore from the town church, his presence a quiet anchor, and even Officer Daniels from the local police, his uniform crisp with purpose. They huddled behind the bakery counter, whispering over steaming coffee and scribbled notes. Can you see the determination in their eyes? We can't make it about the scars, Pastor Whitmore said firmly, his words a vow. It has to be about the strength. Samuel nodded, fierce and sure. She ain't broken, she's whole in ways most folks can't even dream of. Mark agreed, his voice steady. It's gotta be quiet, genuine, no flash, no fuss. They hashed out the details, logistics, timing, how to pull it off without Emily catching wind. After all, she had a sixth sense for trouble, and for attention she'd rather dodge. Finally, they landed on a plan, something small, something honest, something that shouted in whispers, "We see you. We honor you. We're better because of you." Sunday morning broke clear and golden, the sky stretching wide over Lakewood like a promise. At Summit Market, everything seemed normal, almost too normal. Emily arrived early, clocked in without a fuss, and started her shift, her hands moving with quiet precision over the groceries. But as the morning stretched on, a subtle shift rippled through the air. Did she feel it? Customers trickled in, more than usual for a Sunday, families with kids in tow, couples arm in arm, older folks who rarely shopped on weekends. And they all lined up at Register 2, her register. Emily scanned items with her usual calm, but even she couldn't miss the signs, the long lines snaking back, the extra smiles that lingered, the kids who waved shyly, the folks who paused to say, "Thank you, ma'am," with a sincerity that pierced the ordinary. She frowned slightly, shooting a glance at Mark behind the counter, but he just shrugged, all innocence, fussing with a chewing gum display. What was he hiding? Then, at precisely noon, it happened. Oh, what a moment. The bell above the door jingled, not once, but 3 times in a row, crisp and urgent. Emily looked up, and in marched 3 men in full dress uniforms, Army, Navy, Marines. Their shoes shone like mirrors, their hats sat square and proud, their medals glinted like stars plucked from the sky. The store fell utterly still. Can you hear the hush? Emily's hand froze mid-scan, a cereal box dangling in her grip. The men didn't speak, words weren't needed. They moved slow and deliberate, threading through the crowd, past carts and shelves, until they stood before Register 2. The Marine stepped forward first, removing his hat with reverence and saluting, sharp, clean, heavy with meaning. The Army soldier followed, then the sailor, 3 salutes, 3 silent tributes. Emily's mouth parted, but no sound escaped, her hands trembled as she set the cereal down. Samuel Green appeared at her side, fishing something small and round from his pocket, a coin, engraved with valor. Service. Home. He pressed it into her palm, folding her fingers over it with a gentleness that spoke volumes. Pastor Whitmore stepped up next, resting a hand on her shoulder. "You carried us," he murmured, soft as a prayer, for her ears alone. "Now let us carry you." The crowd stood in reverent silence, no shouts, no fanfare, just bowed heads, hats off, hands over hearts. Respect poured out, not demanded but given freely. Oh, what a sight. Mark swallowed hard, fighting the ache in his throat. Emily stood still, a statue of strength, then slowly lifted her head. Her voice, when it came, was raw but steady. "I just did what anyone would have done," she said quietly. Samuel smiled, gentle as dawn. "Maybe, ma'am, but you did it when it mattered." She tightened her grip on the coin, her eyes sweeping over the faces, some familiar, some new, who'd come not to pity but to stand with her. Something inside her, locked tight since the day she lost her leg, since she returned to silence and stares, finally broke free, not shattered, but released. Emily Carter straightened, her prosthetic clicking softly against the tile, and nodded once, crisp, sure, returning the salutes with the same pride. For the first time, she believed it, she was still a soldier, still needed, still home. The applause began softly, slow, deliberate, a heartbeat of gratitude. Mark joined in, his chest burning with something fierce and beautiful. This was Lakewood's thank you, not in monuments or parades, but in standing with someone who'd stood so long, so bravely, alone. Today, they stood together. How long would they keep standing? The days after that quiet salute didn't shake the world, no reporters, no headlines, but Lakewood? Lakewood transformed, silent and sure. People who once averted their eyes now met Emily's gaze, some with smiles, some with nods, some, like Samuel, with small gestures that said everything. And Emily? She kept showing up. Oh, how she shone. Every morning, Register 2 buzzed with her presence, her soft, good morning, a melody, her quiet courage a tower behind that counter. She wasn't invisible anymore, she was seen, respected, cherished. A week later, Mark's phone rang, City Hall. Mark, it's Mayor Preston. We've heard about Summit, and we've got an idea, a way to thank Emily and all our veterans. Mark's heart pounded as he listened, and when he hung up, he grinned, wide, real, unstoppable. It was perfect. Saturday dawned crisp and bright, but Emily wasn't clocking in, oh no. Mark insisted she take the morning off, gently but firmly. She resisted, fuss wasn't her style, but he smiled. Sometimes, Emily, it's not about what you want, it's what you've earned. Reluctantly, she agreed, dressed simply in a navy blouse and jeans, her hair pulled back, no medals, just her. At 10 a.m., she stood outside Summit Market, puzzled by the crowd, families, veterans in faded uniforms, kids waving tiny flags, the mayor clutching a folder. She looked at Mark, what's this, and he just smiled. Come on. He led her through the throng, which parted like a river, to the entrance where a white cloth draped the wall, hiding something new. The mayor stepped up, voice steady. Today, we honor a veteran, a neighbor, a friend who taught us strength doesn't shout, it shows up, day after day, refusing to quit. He nodded to Emily. She showed us courage isn't medals, it's standing tall when no one's watching, when the world's unkind. He pointed to the cloth. Lakewood can't repay its debt, but we can honor it, and we'll never look away again. He pulled the cloth free, and there it was, a gleaming plaque, Emily Carter Memorial Register. In honor of all who serve, seen and unseen. Strength has many faces. Courage stands quietly. Emily stared, the town holding its breath. Then she stepped forward, pressing her hand to the letters, grounding herself in their truth. Samuel's clap rang out, sharp, bold, then another, until the square pulsed with gratitude. Emily turned, her voice clear, thank you for standing with me. 6 words, simple, enough. Later, on a bench outside, Emily sipped coffee Mark insisted she take, watching the world with him. You ever think about what's next? He asked. She smiled, next, and considered, community work, veteran outreach, a light for others? Maybe, she said. Maybe I'm not done fighting, just different battles now. Mark grinned. Lakewood's lucky to have you. She chuckled. I'm lucky to have Lakewood. Emily Carter's story stirs something deep in me, a mix of admiration and frustration. Her life as a veteran with a prosthetic leg, facing discrimination yet rising above it, screams a truth we too often ignore, real strength isn't loud or flashy, it's the quiet grit of everyday heroes. I'm moved by her resilience, working in that supermarket while society looks past her sacrifices. It's infuriating how veterans, people who've given so much, are sidelined, and how disability still carries a stigma in a world that claims progress. But oh, the warmth when her town finally honors her. That shift from ignorance to gratitude fills me with hope. It's a blazing reminder that community can heal when empathy kicks in. I feel strongly that we need more of this, more awareness, more action to support veterans and people with disabilities. Emily's tale isn't just heartwarming, it's a gut punch to look beyond appearances. I'm inspired by her dignity, her refusal to be diminished, and I believe it's on us to champion these quiet warriors. This story fuels my conviction: lifestyle and social views must evolve to truly honor resilience over perfection. The breeze lifted the plaque's edge, sunlight dancing on the words. In our darkest moments, kindness finds a way, quiet, steady. Not everyone seeks recognition, some just ensure no one goes hungry. That's enough to change a life. Don't let these stories fade. Subscribe to Heartfelt Gratitude Stories, where justice shines, kindness endures, and quiet heroism lives forever.